So we have a problem that we need to address. And the problem is this. I've noticed in a lot of conversations I've had recently, but also for years, that people don't often actually make eye contact with each other when they speak or when they listen. They'll be talking, looking around, talking about themselves, nothing really even relevant to the individual they're speaking with, and they'll basically abuse each other's attention when they speak. And you might say, well, there are a lot of different types of conversation. There's no need to make eye contact all the time. If you're a chef working at a busy restaurant and you're just saying, hey, there's an order on table 3, you can just turn over your shoulder, shout that across the busy, loud kitchen to the wait staff, and you don't need to go and look into the depths of the windows of each other's soul to say that. Okay, point taken, but I still think there are a lot of conversations that are of the type where eye contact is a good thing and it doesn't happen enough. Why do we do that? That's not my concern here. There are many reasons we don't make enough eye contact and we don't pay close enough attention when we speak. But my point here is just that it's a problem. Now, it's kind of strange. Growing up as kids, we're often taught by adults that it's a very important rule. You speak you look at someone when you're speaking, and you look at someone when you're spoken to. And yet as adults, we don't practice that very much. It's very important to speak to someone, not just to talk aloud, but to speak to someone, and not to someone, but to the specific individual in front of you. And also to listen to the specific person and the specific individual in front of you. And be aware of who they are and what the shared context of your relationship is and what is relevant that can pass between you. So, who am I speaking to right now? Well, you gawking rabble internet people, for one. I guess this is my welcome to my channel introduction video. I just moved to a new apartment. I've never lived alone before, but I am now. I've never done social media much. I deleted Facebook years ago and I never used it when I had it, hardly. And I got a fish last night. Why am I telling you all that? It all adds up to, I put the fish in the bowl and I want to talk to my new fish. Sounds kind of crazy. But it's important to be in dialogue with someone so that you don't just follow your inner monologue off the deep end. You need to be in dialogue. So I'm going to speak to my fish that's in the bowl on the desk in front of me. Now, you might object. You just told us to speak to someone, not a fish. And you might further object. Hey, you're not talking even to the fish. You're just talking to the video camera that's leaning against the fishbowl and in front of it. Okay, I hear you, but I'd still argue this. A fish actually is a someone worth entering into a relationship with and having a dialogue with, or at least treating as a locus of dignity and aliveness that's worth speaking to and looking at when you communicate with, even if you can't really have a true dialogue with a fish because we're just too different. And here's why. We need another and a wiser and perhaps a more mystical conception of animals. Remote from universal nature and living by complicated artifice, humans in civilization survey the creature through the glass of our knowledge and see thereby a feather magnified in the whole image in distortion. We patronize them for their incompleteness, for their tragic fate of having taken form so far below ourselves. And therein we err, and greatly err. For the animal shall not be judged by the human. In a world older and more whole than ours, they move, finished and complete, gifted with extensions of the senses we have lost or never attained, living by voices we do not hear. They are not brethren, they are not underlings. They are other nations, caught with ourselves in the net of life and time, fellow captives of the splendor and travail of the earth. Henry Beston wrote that in 1928. That's why it's worth even talking to a fish with a little bit of respect. Now, here's the difference. It's the difference between treating someone as a something, as an it, and treating them as a thou, with a capital T, T-H-O-U, that old, formal, respectful you. So I'm talking about treating even a fish as a thou, when we might, most of us, most of the time, might by default treat it as an it. But, so treating what's commonly seen as an it as a thou, it's actually the inverse problem that's far more common and that I want to talk about here and now. And that problem is people who we know are our thous, treating them as its. Far too often, we treat people who we know are a thou. Mom, dad, brother, sister, your best friend, your significant other, the cashier at the grocery store. We treat them as an it. We think, oh, this is a stranger. I'm never going to talk to them again. It doesn't matter. It matters. We think, oh, I've lived with this person my whole life. We've had this same conversation we're having now a zillion times. It doesn't matter. No, it matters. Here's why all of this matters. Here's why you make eye contact with people when you talk to them. Here's why you pay attention when you're listening to them. And it's a very simple reason. It's a very technical matter. It's the only way to sustain the dialogue over time. If you are a normal human being who are with an even vaguely empathic nature, then you will be the kind of person who enjoys maintaining relationships with others, having conversations and dialogues, and maintaining your social connections. So, as I said, it's a technical question. We don't even need to enter into moral judgments about why it's a problem that we pay so little attention to each other, and why we ought to do a better job making eye contact and paying attention when we're in conversation. We don't need to make moral judgments about it. It's just a technical matter. It doesn't work to have two monologues going on. They just wander off in different directions, and people just will frustrate and bother and bore each other. And then the conversation will fizzle, and they won't call you back next time, and you won't get together again. But if you look across the set of all conversations and you see what is in common across that set that leads to you being invited back to play that game again and again and again, to have more conversations and sustain them over time, across time, you'll see that it's respect and attention and listening well and eye contact when you listen and when you speak. So it matters, and let us look each other in the eyes and pay attention to each other when we speak and when we listen.